Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Paula Rosen. I'm at Education Update. I'm the publisher here in New York City. We are privileged to have with us today Sam Koplewicz, who has done some amazing things, and he's going to tell us about them and what the motivation was to end up going to Beirut. Sam, would you tell us a little bit about your education, where you went to college, and what you majored in so we can have some kind of a background?
Yeah, no problem. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I went to Brown University. I concentrated, which is what you do at Brown, in public policy, after which I received a Fulbright to go to Croatia, where I researched money laundering law enforcement, or the change thereof, as Croatia joined the EU. After that, I attended Harvard Law School and now am about to embark on a Satter Fellowship with Human Rights Watch, where I'll be based out of Beirut doing media advocacy around the Syrian conflict.
What was it about the Croatian experience that really made it a dent and made you want to continue to help other human beings?
My interest in specifically conflict areas where there's grave human rights violations comes from my heritage as the grandson of Holocaust survivors. The stories that I heard growing up were the cornerstones of my way of thinking, my ethical compass. From there, it just kind of expanded, and as I went through life, saw certain injustices that I felt compelled to attempt a bettering.
Sam, you mentioned something about your experience in Greece and that you actually saw some very young kids in a prison type of an environment.
Yeah, so while I was at Harvard, I was part of the Harvard Law documentary studio. In fact, I served as president for 2 years. One of the projects that I worked on was my own film, in which I went to Greece and shot a short documentary on the treatment of unaccompanied minors as they were entering Greece from the Middle East. And these are children who are under 18 and are not with adults or guardians.
Why were the parents not there with them?
Many of these children were either sent ahead of their families, left behind in trying to reconnect with their families, and some of them had lost guardians either along the way or from the conflicts that they were coming from.
Were their lives essentially changed by doing this documentary, or what kind of help could they have received?
I think that human rights work is a difficult process. It's done through a number of different channels. A common channel is legal channels, whether that's through a lawsuit or petitioning governments, but to change the way that governments normally are handling human rights violations. In this case, there was a few violations that were occurring, both EU and international law violations. Children are a protected group of people. Refugees are also a protected group, and unaccompanied minors are really supposed to receive a high level of care when washed up along their shores.
Do they, according to your observations?
I would say that in the process of what was happening, Greece, which was predominantly in charge of these refugee camps, was not living up to the standards that the other EU countries, have agreed to, have signed up to, in whether it be conventions or EU directives. And what's unfortunate is that these people are suffering, legitimately suffering and escaping for their lives. This has happened throughout history, and throughout history, humans have been not always great about it. However, every time it happens, we seem to remember it as, oh, we took refugees from this place and from that place, and we pat ourselves on the back about it. However, there's currently a huge migration happening across the world. It's not only from the Middle East towards Europe, it's not only from Africa up towards Europe, it's also from Central and South America into Northern America, and it's something that we're going to have to get used to. Borders are not going to be as firm as they once were in the future. And treatment of humans who are escaping for their lives is something that we've all agreed is a duty that we have to other humans, whether or not they were born in our country, whether or not they naturalized in our country.
As a filmmaker, doing this harrowing documentary and covering this pretty emotional subject, how did you manage to stay objective? Or what helped you to stay objective as a documentarian?
Throughout the process, I was really trying to apply the facts and the images that I was seeing to what I understood the EU directives and international standards were. Greece and many other countries have signed up for themselves. And, some of those directives have been interpreted in different ways. But I very much tried to look at both the actual written rights that were granted to these people and the legal interpretations that have been taken on. At the same time, I was trying to capture images that I thought were compelling.
So this film, you completed this film when you were a student at Harvard. Where did this film end up? Is there any way for people to see it, or?
I showed it at the film festival that we have at the end of the year. We had a number of filmmakers. And then I also was able to show it at a conference in Croatia that I was invited to do a little talk and screen the film at. And it's not for public consumption just yet, mainly because I'm a little bit anxious about some of the legal ramifications. The situation there was constantly changing, so I filmed in November, law school kind of got in the way, and the final product I think wasn't really done until April. And by that time the situation really had shifted. And I wasn't sure if putting this film out would really be honest and objective, as you were talking about. And that's something that was really important to me.
If you think about what you visualized and what you actually saw, what can we do as a nation, the United States, or what can the world do?
So I when I was there, I was speaking with someone who was a refugee himself, an Afghan refugee himself, and now he is working at the Greek refugee fund, and he was saying that we need to change the way that we think about migration and migrants. That it can't be a system of screening and holding and checking, but one that says, hey, okay, you just went through serious struggles. Let's welcome you, we don't have to say open arms, but let's welcome you in a reasonable, human way. I think that one of the issues that the world has faced and is facing now is that we have trouble humanizing each other. And we get some two-dimensional idea of who these people are and how evil they are or what they look like. And they look different from us. And they're not human. And I think that's one of the great parts about filmmaking when talking about human rights. You're able to bring someone's story, someone's humanity into the lives of other people who can't quite see that.
Maybe let's pivot a little bit to what you're doing now and what your work is like at Human Rights Watch.
Yeah, so I'm just starting off at Human Rights Watch, moving to Beirut in a week or so, and I'm excited. I'm excited to try to help what Human Rights Watch is already doing, which is turning really solid investigative research with an understanding of the law, the legal framework, and presenting it through mediums that are more accessible to more people and are also more compelling than, say, some 80-page report that might have every fact and every legal idea in there, but doesn't hit home quite as hard as maybe, say, a film or photos.
Now, this Satter Foundation that you referred to is part of Harvard
Harvard
Law School.
So it's actually just the Satter Fellowship, which is sponsored by Mr. Satter. He funds several students to go to the most dangerous states in the world that are ranked 7 on the Freedom Index and do really groundbreaking work in or adjacent to those countries. and it's a really wonderful opportunity for students coming out of Harvard Law School to get involved in really important work across the world.
What can you tell us a little bit about what happened with the Fulbright and what you did there?
Yeah, so the Fulbright was a research Fulbright where I was focusing on, money laundering, law enforcement, as Croatia was joining the EU and the changes that were happening there. It was not the easiest of tasks, but I was able to look at the laws that they recently were implementing, the structural changes in law enforcement there, and it was a really great experience and research topic to be working on. However, at least in my mind, the Fulbright is just as much soft diplomacy as it is supposed to be the product that you produce at the end. So I was able to kind of make these really amazing connections with Croatians from all walks of life that I've maintained and really appreciated. And I was recently back there, and it feels like going home. I really felt like I made some deep roots there, and felt very grateful to have done the Fulbright.
So it would be interesting if you go back there in several years and see what things are like and whether you still have the same feelings.
Yeah.
With people, and if they felt that way to you, I'm assuming.
They welcomed me into their homes, and the conversations that we had just picked up from where they were. And Croatia has also changed and is changing in a beautiful way. More people are visiting it. More people are visiting Zagreb, where I was living. And Zagreb, the city of Zagreb, has experienced some change. So that was also a really nice thing to see.
What are some of the major difficulties that those people face in their lives?
So the Balkans in general is a place that has only recently experienced very harsh civil war, and that civil war, the falling out of former Yugoslavia, came not very long after war before that, and I think that having that kind of atmosphere is a difficult thing to work through. Sometimes you can feel it, and sometimes the issues that were so present during that time flare up. And I think that that's one of the challenges that not only Croatia, but the entire region is still dealing with. The Balkans, I think, is a really interesting place because you kind of have the meeting of many worlds. Serbia seems to look towards Russia when thinking about how they want to be in the world. Bosnia seems to look more towards Turkey, and Croatia looks more towards the West. And although those are only three of the countries in the Balkans, they seem to play a major part. So when conflicts arise between these different power structures, conflict seems to also arise in these areas. And you get the same things that we are experiencing both here in the U.S. and that you can see both in Europe and across the world, rise in nationalism, and this black and white thinking of us versus them. It's a sad time, but at least in my theory, it's a kind of growth spurt that the world is experiencing, and hopefully we will end up in a place better